And here to guide us through what has happened in the past and what may happen in the future, the founder and chairman of the Society to Advance Financial Education and the author of Path to Prosperity, Steve Beaman. Steve, thanks for Skyping in from Oak Brook, Illinois. And as you sit there in suburban Chicagoland, what to make of Greece and this big change? What does it portend for the EU?
Well, clearly, first, thanks for having me on, Miranda and JD both. This is a real pleasure, and it's an important topic for Americans to understand. Greece has been a financial basket case for a number of years, and they only survived due to a bailout from the European Union. Now, with the election of the Syrizan government, what you have is a government that's saying, A, we're going to stop austerity, B, we're going to raise the minimum wage back up, C, we're going to re-implement all the government programs, and D, they've threatened to not pay back the money they were loaned. Well, that has the Germans kind of upset, rightfully so. I think we could all understand why.
Oof. Wow. So how is the rest of Europe reacting, and can they actually get away with this?
Well, they've backed down a little bit on that statement. Now they're talking maybe we'll just restructure the debt. But we have to appreciate the European Union has struggled since inception with trying to bring it together as a stable economic and political force. When you take the Grecian situation right now and the election of this very radical government, together with the Swiss taking their currency off of its peg to the euro, you start to look at the entire European Union and wonder where it's going to end up.
And mindful of that, and I know it's a different political context than it was years ago, conservatives in Britain thought they would find electoral success with their campaign to keep the pound. It did not work, but now we see the euro in a slide, and so much is going on from the UK to Greece throughout the European Union. Will it remain viable? Will EU stay in place?
Well, I think that's the billion-dollar question. Right now, you're seeing the U.S. markets today trade down, and much of that has to do with U.S. domestic companies. But clearly, this instability being brought into the markets from Europe as a whole is putting more of a hair trigger on the markets. The euro has slid dramatically in value against the U.S. currency, against the Swiss franc and others. And when you tie Greece, Switzerland, and the movements by Vladimir Putin in Moscow into the Ukraine, the instability factor of Europe is expanding greatly. And that will cause consternation to the U.S. markets.
So what do you foresee happening then in the coming months?
I think you're going to see the European Union feeling out this new government, testing their waters to see if they're sincere about their desires to dramatically affect that repayment of the debt. If they do, I think you could see the European Union come together almost on an emergency basis with the European Central Bank, who has now put in their own quantitative easing program, and talk about how they're going to handle this little brother down in the Greek islands that doesn't want to play ball. You could see a real fragmentation in the entire European Union because of this.
Doesn't sound real good there, Steve, but we appreciate the fact that you're able to cut through the clutter and bring us the message as sobering as it is. Steve Beaman, the author of the book Path to Prosperity on the future of the EU and the future of the new Greek government. We thank you very much for your time. It is scary to see what is transpiring in Europe, and obviously, since we have an international economy, what happens there will eventually affect what happens here.
Well, we hope it gets better.
We sure do. Coming up, after the break, we'll talk to a professor of political science, Dr. Matthew Corrigan, about Jeb Bush. Stay tuned.